I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. Everybody, wait a minute. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to I Mix What I Like. I'm Jared Ball, happy to be your host. We're going to get started here in a second. And so please do come on in, like, share, subscribe. Relevant links in the show description. And I think we're all set. So I'll go ahead and bring down... Stop the music and let's just bring up our guests. We got Lil Bill, FD Signifier, Deculturation. Gentlemen, good afternoon. Good to see you all. Welcome. I know, and Bill, I know you said you're going to stay off camera. I think for now you said got something going on, whatever, but welcome everybody. Peace, peace, peace.
Yo.
Peace, peace. Y'all hear me?
Yep.
We lost Bill that quick.
Yep.
I don't know why I got like this wide panorama going on. It's ruining the illusion. Why is this so big?
I don't know. But so I don't know what happened to Bill. And five-ish. Okay, there he is. All right,
that's me. The five-ish is me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I think 5, we should be able to wrap by then. And I think Bill said you had to leave in an hour.
Yeah, so, I gotta step out in like a half hour, but I'm still be on. I'm just gonna have my camera off.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, so I can still hear everything that's going on.
All right. Well,
is that not gonna work?
Yeah, I mean it's fine for me. I mean we'll do what we can do, I guess. I don't know. So all I really wanted to say at the beginning of all of this is that I've watched everybody's videos. I think I've seen everything, and I'm looking forward to the conversation, and I'm grateful that everyone is willing to do it. I think more of this needs to be able to happen as we work our way through this and figure things out. So how we go from there, I'm not sure. Do we want to Bill? I know you got the time issue. Should we let Bill lay out the argument, or Carlos, you respond? FD, I'm not really, and or vice versa.
I'm opposite of you. I've watched nobody's videos. I'm here more because I enjoy. I'm really looking forward to like clarification and looking at the different angles of this conversation as I've had it privately with people, and as I've been observing it in online spaces. So engaging with learned folks is always an opportunity that I'm gonna take. So,
all right, fair enough. So, well, Bill, why don't you lay out where what started this? Your if you could just briefly summarize, and again, the full videos in the show description. Deculturation's response is in the show description. So folks are welcome to check it all out. Bill, why don't you start by just summarizing what your point was in raising this question about
no problem.
Zionism and Jewish supremacy?
So let me first off and say that just hold on. Let me go somewhere where these kids is not screaming at. Let me just say, and this isn't directed at anybody in particular on or off of this panel, but I will say that the nature by which this discourse has even arose is the thing that irks me and was the reason why I made the video to begin with. Because what I find a lot of times in these online leftist spaces, right, is that we have a bad habit a lot of times of using our personal politics as a barometer for morality for that and those of the people around us. And in the process, what winds up happening is that we wind up flattening these discussions, right? Because one of the functions of religion is what? Is to give simple answers to complex topics, right? And so what we wind up doing is we wind up getting into this game of, trying. I say this all the time, that one of my big issues with us, again, I'm not saying, us specifically on this panel, but with us on the left side of the spectrum, is that we get so caught up on proving that we're right at the cost of being productive, right? And so my thing is so this ultimately brings me to this point. And the two primary issues that I have with the whole Jewish supremacy discussion is, first and most importantly, what function does the phrasing actually serve, right? What function does the phrase specifically Jewish supremacy serve that Zionism isn't already? You understand what I'm saying? And to piggyback off of that, and so it leads me now to this point is, all right, so what, and maybe this is cynical of me, but I feel like the function that it actually is serving, not theoretically, but what it's actually serving right now, it is serving as a means for, at best, posturing, and at worst, profiteering. It's a means for people that, again, it's a means for people to use their personal politics as a barometer for morality. And it gives them the ability, like I said in the video, certain people to be able to say certain things to certain other folk that their politics does not give them the ability to say, to speak sideways to minorities in a manner that they would not be able to otherwise. And I understand what folk are going to say about, making a delineation between Jewish supremacy and Zionism, that, all right, we need stronger language is what I'll hear some folks say, is we need stronger language to describe this specific permutation of Zionism. Okay, I hear you on that. But does the use of that language, do the pros of the uses of that language outweigh the cons? Because the cons are quite obvious. The cons are that phrase can be and has been, this is not theoretical, we see it happening right now, co-opted by the wrong people to promote their own specifically anti-Semitic agendas and to fall back on those old, anti-Semitic harmful tropes that have brought that upon Jewish people. And I think ultimately my main issue is, and again, I could be wrong, because again, I really have not entertained this discourse all that much, but from what I have seen, this discourse is primarily being facilitated by non-Palestinian people, and I have an issue with that, because Palestinians are the primary players in what's actually happening in real life. the most material impact of this discourse, of these discussions is going to be experienced by Palestinian people. So therefore, and this is why I, avoided making, explicitly Palestinian content in the past. Again, shout out to, Lost Futures is a creator that people should look at if they want to hear from the horse's mouth. Because I, for one, this is just me speaking from a personal place. I find it ghoulish to turn genocide into content. I find it ghoulish to just turn it into a talking point. I find it ghoulish to, sit up here and make a video speaking on behalf of people who are of a community that I am not a part of and saying, oh, well, I'm defending the rights of Palestinians. I'm, speaking on behalf. So then let the Palestinians speak for themselves then. How about you platform them, give them the pedestal that you have created so that they can tell their own story instead of making a video and then putting ads on it and putting the money in your pocket. You understand what I'm saying? So I feel like that's where a lot of this discourse, that even if that's not the intent, that is what it is boiling down to. And that is what irks me about it, because from my perspective, I feel like it's doing more harm than actually creating an environment where we can actually learn something, where we can actually have a discourse, have a discussion in which, we can examine, the nuances of, Jewish identity within the framework, within the context of, this current neo-colonial imperial. I keep coming back to that. That's what this all comes down to. Go ahead.
So I just wanted, so if I understood you, because I think I understood this one point that you were just summarizing that I thought I understood you making in the video, that and I think I agree with this point, that there is an attempt in certain spaces to use the claim of Jewish supremacy to have folks, to basically give them their Quentin Tarantino N-word moment as it relates to Jews. So
exactly.
So I actually agree with that point, but I just want to be clear that I understood this is what you were saying. But
that's exactly what I was saying.
Irrelevant. I just wanted to be clear on that. Go ahead, yep. Carlos. Go ahead. And what is if you could summarize at least your problem with Bill's comments there.
Yeah, no, I mean, can y'all hear me good? Well, yeah, I'm good.
First of all, I just you're good on this end.
Thank you, because I've noticed there's a reason why a lot of.
Although you know what, Carlos, real quick, I do think your mic is not picking up like normal. I do think I hear that difference. I don't know if you switched from anything you were just doing on your live or anything else, but I just want to. I'm hearing a difference. I don't know if anybody. I mean, you're heard clear. Yeah. But it is a little bit off, a little quiet, as is being said,
If I could, I guess while Carlos is testing out the mic situation, to also give a little more background, and I'm gonna just bluntly break a rule and name a few names. And also because I had a brief text exchange with Josh from Laurel from Black Man Bill earlier. Lorick, I'm sorry, from Black Man Bill earlier. And I was explaining how one thing that I think makes translating where me and Bill are difficult sometimes to our more radical audience is that a lot of the times when you first are hearing us talk, the people at the front of our mind that we're trying to address are very online leftists. And often very terminally white, blindly white online leftists. And the conversation, and it's almost like you need to listen to us at two different frequencies. There's a frequency where are we making a solid radical critique of a thing, which I know I failed at times and Bill's failed at, I'm sure. But then there's does that critique make sense if you look at it, if you're also a person who watches, I'm gonna say Bad Empanada. I'm gonna say watches Cavernacle. And these are two people that I've appreciated their content at times, but I've noticed specifically with Bad Empanada, I'm not gonna put this on Cavernacle too tough. that they've gotten extremely careless and frivolous with the way they're engaging in the topics around genocide. The boy band Empanada is running around using legit Nazi terminology to insult Black people on Twitter. If you look into I'm not saying they've nurtured this, but like I have screenshots of neo-Nazis in Tabernacle's Twitter feeds because there's a congealment of this energy, and when people kind of call that out, it becomes, oh, this is liberal Zionism. This is, you don't understand Jewish supremacy. And whenever I hear white people say anything supremacy, my alarms immediately go off. If I hear a white person trying to explain how somebody else's version of white supremacy is the same as theirs, when I hear Black supremacy, I hear alarms go off. When people try to say, oh, Farrakhan and even Umar, as many critiques as I've had of them, these are Black supremacists. I'm like, oh, all right, break down the frameworks there for me. It's interesting, and I'm looking to hear from Carlos going forward. My initial response, I actually developed in part in a conversation from Carlos, because when I've heard him talk about Zionism, he talks about it as a white supremacist framework. And to me, that's cool. And so when I see, and this is not to denigrate the validity behind the concept of Jewish supremacy, which I have learned more about since I've been having these discussions behind the scenes, but as they've materialized for content and for clout, that has been alarming, and it's been something I personally stayed away from, in part because as Bill saw, like there's so many people waiting in the weeds to label you a Zionist and a Jewish supremacist and a insert Nazi dog whistle here for just being like, this sounds weird. Y'all are sounding a little weird. But that also doesn't mean that there's not a better version of the analysis that I could be operating with, or that could be put out in the forefront, which is, I think, what I'm most hopeful to get at.
And if I could just interject real quick, so what FD just did is basically he just gave the layman's definition of exactly what I was talking about posturing at best and profiteering at worst. Because I would not be surprised if somebody is watching this and is going to click FD, and tomorrow we see a video with liberal Zionists plastered across it. You understand? Completely ignoring, right? Completely misrepresenting the point that he's trying to make. And my question now becomes, all right, so why do you do that? Why do you do that? It's not to create an environment where we can, because I will give this, and I have acknowledged this in the past, and I don't want to, bogart the conversation. Is that my analyses can be, I have a habit of talking in analogies and allegories. Anybody who Feek will tell you that. Matter of fact, Dr. Ball will tell you that's how I talk in real life. That's how I talk off camera, is I talk in analogies and allegories. And what winds up happening is that the finer details do wind up getting missed sometimes, more frequently than I would like. But again, getting back to the main highway, is that the main takeaway, the main point that I want people to get away from these conversations is that there's a way to have these conversations, one, without posturing, without without having it for the intent of proving that you're right. There's also a way to have this conversation in a way that does not bring unnecessary harm to, again, let's not forget that Jewish people are a marginalized people. There's a way to have this conversation.
Bill,
what? All right, y'all correct me then. Correct me then.
So, all right, let me
go ahead.
Let me let Carlos. No, I don't want to. I want to.
This is why you're here, Dr. Ball. This is why you're hosting.
No. I think there's a role that I'm trying to play, and I want to. But the disagreement initially was between the two of you. I want to give you a chance to give your take and then as time permits, I'll have my. I admit though, my bad on that response. I do have a visceral reaction to that particular claim, but we can come back to that. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Carlos.
No,
go ahead.
appreciate it. All good now with the audio? My apologies there.
Much better, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so man, all right, we'll start backwards, I guess. I think the main issue is that instead of framing it and naming names, I always tell people name names. I've always been that way. Just, say it. It's Bad Empanada, right? I'm assuming he's a piece of shit. He's a white supremacist. He's anti-indigenous. He's anti-black. I don't fuck with that fool at all. I can't stand people like him. He moved to Argentina and wants to claim to be Latino. He's a weirdo, bro. He's a weirdo. His fans have already threatened to dox me and contact my exes and all this. I'm like, all right, bro, whatever. I'm here for it. I mean, I got nothing to lose. I'm still broke. It's fine. But here's the issue.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Is you saying he's not Latino at all?
No, he's Australian from I think Greek or some shit like that. Yeah.
So I've never watched. I only know of him through your criticism. So the name Empanada, that's messed up. Okay, my bad. Go ahead. Okay, sorry about that. Wow.
He does it to whitewash his whiteness in a way. Funny enough. But look, so the only reason I even reacted to your video is honestly I don't really watch much of your content. It's no disrespect. It's just not my thing. I've told FD, same thing. I'm over here watching every video that Black Liberation Media drops. I'm preoccupied. But
it's not, no offense taken.
Yeah. So he covered your video, and I'm like, all right, let's see what's going on here. And I watch his, and immediately, not even 2 minutes in, and his anti-blackness is already up front and center, to the point that when we covered it, we pulled up that In Living Color skit with Jim Carrey pretending to be Jerry Seinfeld and going to the ghetto, and it's that's the type of energy that Ben and I was bringing. I think you said something like, "You feel me?" And he's like, "No, I don't feel you." All right, and it's and you see those kind of dog whistles that white people use when they don't interact with white people and they're not comfortable around them. They're like, "What do you mean? What's up?" Kind of 80s type of fucking nerd racism. I don't know. It's weird. So I immediately stopped it and I'm like, all right, let me watch, from the source. And bro, I was not ready for the nonsense in terms of there's a difference of saying, hey, and I've talked about this. People like Anna Kasparian, people there's plenty of other examples embracing this whole Zog thing, the Zionist occupied government. That is a way to protect and guard the WASP. Right, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, who are, if we're gonna go conspiracy mode and kind of try to pinpoint somebody, it's them, it's been them, right? And they've used Zionism, Zog specifically, as a scapegoat to provide cover for them. When you study the white nationalist militias, especially right after Vietnam, they were obsessed with Zog, and they're like, if we only get rid of the Zionists controlling our government, we can have the government that our founding fathers promised us, right? And so studying that, I realized, okay, this is nonsense. Before I read, the Jewish question and Lenin or anything like that, kind of trying to break away from anti-Semitism. Before I read any of that, I studied these white nationalist militias. And I was like, all right, cool. I was aware of why they're using that type of language. So if you would have kind of approached it in that way of saying, hey, there's a lot of white, self-proclaimed leftists, because a lot of these people don't identify as socialists, communists, or anarchists. We're leftists. If you would have approached it that way, saying, hey, they're using this as an opportunity to be anti-Semitic, to express anti-Semitism. If they, look at Norm Finkelstein, who literally jumped the first chance to call, who was FD's alter ego?
Which one?
Van Jones.
Van Jones.
Oh, yes, he called him uncle. No, I didn't think he called him Uncle Tom. I feel like he said something.
He used a Yiddish N-word. Yeah, a Yiddish N-word. And look, as much as I hate to say it, the Holocaust industry, and I was going over this on my earlier stream, I think it's an essential read to understand that colonizer mentality and how they use the Holocaust as propaganda. But he's anti-black. He mocks decolonization. He's always trying to he's a white savior through and through. And to be a white savior, you need to be, you have to have that white supremacist mentality. So just to wrap up, if Bill would have approached it like, hey, these are opportunists. Look, I know he's your homie FD, but Noah Sampson's video, his thumbnail with it's him and Palestine destroyed behind him and like a Palestinian child starving. Like every time I see that thumbnail, it enrages me, bro, because I understand like the algorithm and all this stuff and the thumbnails and you got to put your face out there. But like, dude, like what's wrong with you? Like how sick and distant do you have to be from like any sense of dignity and respect, you know, to put that out there and not have a second thought about it. So I understand where Bill is coming from in terms of like these profiteering individuals. Hassan Piker claiming that, oh, if you're Zionist, if you ever had any Zionist sentiment, you shouldn't even be the local dog catcher. And he's taking off his shirt to give a pin to liberal Zionist Bernie Sanders. Like Bernie is a Zionist through and through. He was worshiping Golda Meir, who used chemical weapons in the West Bank. He opposes a single state with equal rights, which is still like a liberal ass position. Like that's how devoted he is to the Zionist project. And so there's opportunists, white opportunists. I don't do that spicy white shit. They're white everywhere. And I understand that. I get that. And we should combat that. And we should be calling them out for normalizing liberal Zionism. But man, in terms of like trying to, first of all, I don't like the term Jewish supremacist, because it's like, it takes away from like the importance of understanding and combating Zionism. It is a branch of white supremacy. Sorry?
So if I could, and so to me, a lot of this still sounds aligned, but I saw how y'all reacted to the Jewish people as marginalized community. And, you know, I'm not going to say that I don't know why you guys reacted to that, but if there's people in the crowd, right, that may not know this particular aspect of the analysis as to why that would be the take. I know that, but because that also comes from Finkelstein, so it's kind of like, so somebody illustrate that.
I mean, my quick 2 cents on it is simply that it's not to deny Jews had and their particular relationship to other Europeans and to the United States. It's to deny their access into the category that is, I think, privileged in this contradictory way for the truly oppressed in this society in a particular way, and to say that you are to claim to be to any attempt to be categorized along with indigenous, formerly enslaved, you know, Latino, bracero, you know, all those histories, like all that kind of like to put that in the same category and to deny the privilege that has come with their whiteness and their European heritage is I think misleading. It also, to my running problem here, denies us an accurate analysis of Jews, which I still think very few people have, including Jews. So which could really be extended to any topic, but in this case, so that's my relatively quick.
What do you guys think is a useful framing of that state though? Like when because I've been working on this in the background project on white people, and so you talk about don't laugh. It is funny. It is quite amusing. It's definitely a comedy if I ever get it done. But when we talk about that transition to whiteness, right? That also the Irish and the Italian did. You know, it feels like there's some Asian Americans thinking there might be up next. I don't think it'll work out for them, but we'll see, right? What is the best framework to look at that state? Because the Irish and Italians did definitely face not the same, but similarly situated state repression at that time, and now are very much white. I don't know if I don't think that's what Jewish people face in the moment, but they definitely still do face a form of hostility from traditional white supremacists that other white people, because I've never considered, like, I've gotten shit from Jewish people for saying that they're white. And it's like, y'all are all white until you say you're Jewish.
Well, I mean, so again, to paraphrase James Baldwin on this point, it's the same thing. They are white in the context of the United States and in the context of their relationship to world majority people. So if again, I'm all for deep dive analysis and nuance and sophisticated reasoning and all of that, So if there is to be, that's what I'm saying. If people want to actually have an analysis of the world and of history, they can do particular investigations I would hope within a certain particular political frame of the different histories of various people, all, Europeans included. And they can recognize the different pathways the Irish, the Italians, the Jews, the Poles, the Catholics, et cetera, have all taken within that European stream. And then recognize that particularly here as it coalesces in the United States and vis-a-vis Western Europe, those coalescing moments are almost entirely hostile and violent when addressed to non-European world majority people. So that's really, and I think Jews themselves, European Ashkenazi Jews themselves, when they are honest in their honest moments, have no problem recognizing this. And this is why I think so much of the public conversation, including from Jews themselves, is nonsense, because they do know that at the end of the day, when attempting to assimilate in this country, and if you particularly look at the history of European Jews and that path in this country, there have been very conscious choices made. We want to assimilate, and if that means becoming enemies of Black, brown, et cetera, and so forth, so be it. So be it. And Eric Williams said the same thing back with capitalism and slavery. Every European in the 16th, 17th, and 18th century who was in any form of business was in the slave trade. And Jews, just like everybody else who were in any form of business, were in the slave trade, just like everybody else coming out of Europe as it relates. So, and that's sort of my point as it relates to the myopic or the microcosmic experience here in the United States. When people become American, when they aspire to that, they have to take on all that means, which comes as a core principle, anti-Blackness and anti-labor and anti-Palestine and, you know, all of those kinds of things. So just quickly, if I can, while I'm talking, because I know Bill's got to go, I just want to say a couple things before Bill does dip and to give a chance for him to respond.
Oh no, I'm still here. Y'all just can't y'all just can't see me, but I'm gonna be on for the that's why I'm using the phone and not the computer.
Okay, got you. Thank you, got you. All right, well then let me just stop there then, and Carlos, let you jump in, or Bill or anyone else, and then I can come back.
Just quickly, I will say, like, we don't have this conversation about the Irish. We don't have this need for a nuanced conversation about the whiteness of the Irish. They sold out. They betrayed what was seen as their fellow people, non-white people. We don't have this conversation. And I think it lends itself to the fact that when we're talking about Jewish people, we're talking about anti-Semitism, we're thinking about European Jews. We're not thinking about African Jews. We're not thinking about, when we talk about the Jewish diaspora, we're talking about European Jews. Like, let's stop pretending we're not talking about Europeans.
But that's
the frustrating part.
Well, I'm sorry, but that's also kind of what that throws me, because there are still European Jews that face, again, I'm not trying to do the Olympics here between Jews and actual people of color in this country, but like the Nick Fuentes of it all, the Tucker Carlson of it all, there probably are some Jews kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place right now, as the white supremacy that some of them may prefer is literally clashing with the Christian nationalism of it all.
But that's a self-imposed. The rock is self-imposed, and that's always been my argument and my problem. And one of the problems that I have, and for those who may not know, I know I have a larger audience than normal today. I don't know why. And whoever's here for these other folks, shame on you. You should be here all the time. I don't know why. It's ridiculous. But you know, my mother being a European Jew, an Ashkenazi Jew, and the particularities of that I get have in some ways given me a perspective that I don't expect others to have, and wouldn't. Yeah, but it has shown me that one of the many casualties at the tail end of these casualties of Zionism are the anti-Zionist European Ashkenazi Jews who are not on the project, who are anti-imperialist, who are legitimately on the good team, but they are often marginalized and excised from their own communities in any meaningful way, as most white liberals are in general. And then what is left is that the dominant narrative, the dominant power, the dominant thrust within the European Jewish community that does say, at the end of the day, when it comes to non-Europeans, we want to be European. We're on Team European. So again, that rock is self-imposed. The hard place of that is imposed by other Europeans could have been historically and could still be, I don't know, theoretically alleviated if that tendency, if that desire towards Europeanhood or Europeanness or whiteness were rejected or resisted or again, yeah. But that's not the case. So that's how they end up getting stuck in that position.
I had cut you off, but I want
you really do need to look at the Zionist project as European Jews buying into whiteness.
Yeah,
saying, hey, we can do what the rest of the other European people can do. We can colonize these backward savages. We could civilize this region. That's their buy-in. Where the Irish, they bought in mainly through like being, law enforcement here, and just through that process, European Jews were like, all right, we'll colonize on your behalf. I mean, they're literally planting European trees in Palestine, right? They're burning down olive fields. Like, this is how sick it is, and how upfront it is that it is a white supremacist project. One of the reasons why I avoided this whole like Jewish supremacy thing is because if it was truly Jewish supremacy, if it was truly about, if you're Jewish, we're on the same team, they wouldn't be forced sterilizing Black Jews, African Jews, Ethiopian Jews. They sterilize them in the Zionist project. If it was truly about Jewish supremacy, then they'd be like, hey, the more the merrier. We could occupy more land with Jewish people and take and occupy from Palestinians. That's not to sympathize with these colonizers. They're still colonizers. But it highlights that it isn't about predominantly Jewish supremacy. It's about white supremacy first and foremost. It's about being European. It's about being white. Now, I have a question for Bill is, all right, I never heard him define really Jewish supremacy. I haven't really seen it too prominent. Again, I think that it's a lazy way for reactionaries, to weaponize instead of embracing anti-Zionism, because I feel like a lot of these reactionaries, the moment that the U.S. stops funding and protecting and defending and ridding itself of like AIPAC and all this, that they're going to be perfectly fine with the colonization of Palestine, as long as they don't feel that, the Zionist entity is somehow pulling the strings of the U.S., right? So that's why I don't like Jewish supremacy. But I do think that the way that Bill was talking about it, I was a bit confused to where, let's say this, it's a legitimate phrase or whatever, a word. It feels like every Zionist is not a Jewish supremacist, but every Jewish person who is a Zionist is inherently a Jewish supremacist. Am I wrong in that? Or because I'm trying to understand kind of the argument.
Wait, say that. My bad. My brain is slow. Say that again.
No, you're good. I am the youngest person here, I think. So it's fine. It's fine.
It is getting late.
It is getting late. Nap time. So every Zionist isn't inherently a Jewish supremacist, right? Because you have Zionists like Joe Biden, who's a Catholic. But every Jewish person who is a Zionist is inherently a Jewish supremacist.
That makes sense to me, but I feel like the least learned person here on the team.
No, I think, but the only thing I wanted to add is that if you follow the texts of each religious group, they all encourage that same belief. So yes, Jews, just like everybody else, especially if you read the Talmud, are absolutely encouraged to believe of themselves as chosen, as special, and better than. Absolutely, yeah.
I get that. I think that's also important to point out. Like, I grew up Muslim, and we thought very highly of ourselves. It's probably one of the reasons why it has a strong like appeal to oppressed people around the world, is because it kind of imbues. I mean, same thing that happens with a lot of oppressed statuses. But that oppressing thing is kind of like the thing I'm struggling with critically. But I wanted to let Bill respond.
Well, I just wanted to try and to talk it out in my head to make it make so. Because even hearing it phrased that way, it's still, to me, at the end of the day, what we're talking about is white supremacy that is being exercised or being exercised through imperialism. Because, you know, I'll put it like this. The U.S. state is not funding Israel because of Jewish supremacy. They're not funding Israel because they want to see, because they give a damn one way or another about the establishment or the maintenance of a Jewish ethno state. They're doing so to advance neo-colonial imperialistic interests. And it just so happens that Jewishness is the scapegoat by which they are able by which the occupying force that is the state of Israel is able to justify the pursuit of again neo-colonial imperial. Because I think another thing that it I don't know. It's maybe I'm not smart enough to really kind of comprehend again why
you broke up there,
Bill.
Bill. Yeah, you broke up.
Bill.
Um,
Can I just quickly jump in on that? So I understand what he's saying, and he used this phrase a lot in his video, like you're missing the forest for the trees. And I get that he wants to focus on, you know, the true puppeteer, or, you know, always, hey, remember the dog wags the tail, not the other way around. I get that aspect of it. The problem is that if the U.S. were to pull out everything, all defense interests within the Zionist project is still going to exist. The Zionist project is still going to take it upon itself to defend itself, right? To continue expanding its land grab. All those things will continue with or without the U.S. the same way that it continued with or without, you know, Europe being its core defender. So while it's true that it does require the U.S. at large for protection and influence, it doesn't necessarily need it, as well as, the lobbying groups within the U.S. The U.S. might not be doing it for Jewish supremacy, but the lobbying groups that represent the Zionist project are doing it for Jewish supremacy. So it doesn't have to be one thing or the other exclusively.
I slightly disagree with that last point, only because there are non-Jewish Zionists supporting those lobbyist groups who are not doing it for Jewish supremacy, but for the other reasons that were in line, that do go back some of it to the religious beliefs and other political beliefs. But I do in general agree with, that was just,
and that's kind of my thing, because I don't think the
real quick, FD, my bad. I'm sorry. I forgot. I'm sorry. But it is from that Finkelstein book, The Holocaust Industry, that I learned, to your last point, Carlos, that, and I agree, it's a good point, that it wasn't until the 67 war where Israel showed it could defeat its neighbors that the U.S. became its primary backer. For the first 20 years, France was the primary investor. So it's not to say that they would be as strong or whatever, things would run as smoothly if without U.S. support. And certainly if U.S. stood against what they were doing, it would become more difficult. But I think you're right that if the U.S. pulled out every penny right now and just said, we're just going to, we're just going to step back and just leave you alone, they would still go on.
China is its largest trading partner.
Yeah. So I think the point there wasn't so much to have the point there wasn't to deny the inherent violence of Zionism and the ideological framework being rooted in Jewish supremacy and, extremism or whatever. It was more so to point out that we're still talking about white supremacy. And again, thinking about why I won't put words in Bill's mouth, but I think we're aligned on this. The reason why the video exists specifically is because literal white supremacists, if we agree on the status of Bed and Panada, were using Jewish supremacy to distract from white supremacy. You see what I'm saying? And so and I'm going to speak explicitly for myself, but I do think Bill and some others would agree with me. The thing that is the challenge that I'm putting out to more so I'll say pop culture political commentators, right, is are you centering white supremacy in your anti-Zionist rhetoric and discussion? And most of them are not, is the thing I've come to realize. Is most of them are focusing on Jewish supremacy, which I find to be not good. And that I think we're all kind of aligned on that as well. And I wish Bill was here to kind of speak a little bit more on it. Oh, okay. Well, I want to hear more. But like that's the thing that I think gets lost. Somebody in the chat said earlier that Bill and FD cultivated white liberal audiences, and I always have to push back against that. The audience is white. Period. Like either you have a small niche audience that's all black, which Bill's audience I think is blacker than mine, right? Or if you sell a million, like name me the rapper that sold 1 million copies that didn't have a predominantly white audience. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like so really it's important to couch some of your critique and your analysis and what you produce in the fact that there will be a large white audience consuming it with little to no guardrails on how they engage the content. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's constantly needing to remind people that this is still a settler colonial project here. And so the majority is European for the same reason that the Zionist entity wants to continue bringing in, Jewish from the diaspora into the region to occupy. And I think the only time that we're really going to see, if we're going down that road, civil rights, which a lot of liberal Zionists who may not identify as liberal Zionists, right, like the Majority Report, a lot of online leftists, we're going to see civil rights being granted to Palestinians, right, under Zionist occupation, will be when they secure a numerical majority, right? So of course the audience here is always going to be European predominantly, right? So you're right in that sense. But one thing that I want to highlight in terms of like, hey, we have to normalize Zionism or Jewish supremacy as part of white supremacy. I think we kind of distinguish them too much. And a prime example is that earlier you mentioned Nick Fuentes, right? If I were to call Nick Fuentes my primo, right, my cousin, people would be like, yo, what the fuck? Like, that's kind of, and I'm like, well, he is, half Mexican, he's Hispanic, he's Catholic, all these things, right? People would like look at me a type of way and be upset. And you start kind of aligning me with that type of white supremacist reactionary. Meanwhile, Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez can call Bernie Sanders, a lifelong Zionist, Theo Bernie. Why is that allowed? And we're debating whether or not she aligns with Zionism. And she's only like now finally saying, promising the DSA that she's not going to support any type of weapons because she made that distinction between defensive. And the question is always, what are you defending and who are you defending from? You're defending the Zionist project and you're defending it from the Palestinian indigenous people, right? And their right to dethrone their colonizers. So I think people like, and I mentioned Hassan Piker, Sam Cedar, Kyle KKK Kalinske, like all these individuals kind of hyper focus on like the Zionists and Israeli as something different from white supremacists. They view them as lesser than, even as they witness them commit a genocide. They view them as lesser of a threat because they don't view Palestinians as their life as valuable as Europeans. They will shed more tears watching a documentary about the Holocaust than they will watching on their phones in real time Palestinians getting exterminated. And that's wrong. Like, we need to combat that. They don't care. They are opportunists. In that sense, I do agree with Bill. It's just the way he went about it and the way he dismissed Euro-American Jews and their allegiance to the Zionist project. I mean, he was completely wrong in terms of the numbers. The vast majority of European, Euro-American Jews are Zionists. And in turn, that would make them Jewish supremacists. Like,
yeah, there was a point
numbers.
and in Bill's video where he was making the argument that I think has been misunderstood and misrepresented for a long time now, which was along the lines that younger Jews are more likely to be less Zionist and care less about Israel than older Jews. And usually what I've seen where the mistakes get made is in missing the difference between younger Jews who might be more critical of Israel, or who might say Israel is less important to me than my parents, but who would not reject Zionism. If I said that in other, and I did look something up that I'll share here in a second, that summarizes my point, but it's in the Jewish magazine Forward, and I'm sharing it here. And this point makes my point, or the point I'm trying to highlight here. But despite acknowledging that young Jews are deeply uncomfortable, and this, by the way, I'm sorry, this is from just last year. This is relatively new. Yeah, November of 2025. But despite acknowledging that young Jews are deeply uncomfortable with Israel, around 65% of Jews under 40 say that Israel's actions often conflict with their moral, political, and Jewish values, according to the data presented at the conference. However, and I'm adding that word, however, there was no suggestion that Jewish organizations should move away from ironclad support of Israel. So that's really what I think is at the end of the thing. And even where Jews will say, I don't like Netanyahu, or I don't like the genocide, or I don't like this party or that party, if you say, well, what about Israel? It's like, oh no, it has a right. Which leads us, and I know, and maybe Bill will see this later, and he can always respond or come back or whatever. We can always have another conversation. It's all good. But if I can, there were a couple things that I took notes on that he said that I didn't agree with, and then one thing from your video, Carlos, that I don't think I agree with, that I'll just bring up very quickly.
I'm out. I'm
here.
done.
That's it. You out? That's it. That's it. That's it. In terms of Bill's video, and I agreed with you on this one, Carlos. This whole thing of I'm a black man, I'm not gonna be critical of a black woman and Candace Owens. I can't rock with that. I can't rock with that. We can't. And I get it. I understand him saying I don't want to give fodder to the white supremacists, et cetera. So they don't need it. They're not waiting for Bill to give them permission to say something bad about a black woman. So it's not like, and I think we need more.
I find that so.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Y'all are missing. I have not watched Bill's video. Bill has very explicitly criticized Candace Owens on numerous occasions. So I think there may be a slight misinterpretation.
I mean, he said explicitly, I'm not going at her because I don't want to give fodder to the white supremacists. So if he's been critical of her elsewhere,
I don't know. I'll leave it for Bill to clarify.
That's fine.
More, but that's also a conversation that we've constantly had, and that's the thing. I don't know,
because I don't agree with that, and I just fundamentally don't agree with that approach. Yeah. Go ahead.
I have criticized Candace Owens lightly, right? I have mostly just dismissed her because she's so unserious. I have been more critical of, say, our local assistant district attorney here in Atlanta, Fonnie Willis, right? I put, despite the fact that my biggest scarlet letter is that I said you should probably vote for Kamala Harris, I put Kamala Harris's face on my "Fuck the Police" video, part 2, and people didn't watch the shit and gave her a whole section of critique. So like, there's like criticism of black women, but what I think Bill is getting at, and this is something that I just don't know a way to get into it without ripping the Band-Aid off of the weird clout of it all. When you have a larger audience and people will employ your rhetoric and your language to amplify whatever part of it they like the most, you do have to have inefficient guardrails up on when, how, and where you critique black women specifically, but certain groups in general. I mean,
again, criticism doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be that. It can just simply be, I strongly disagree with this public political argument you're making. So for instance, when Candace Owens just comes off of her HBCU tour, going around to black colleges and universities, telling young black kids basically to become, conservative Christians and Republicans and et cetera and so forth. The idea that there would be no vigorous black voices condemning that is disturbing to me. So like that's sort of my point. It doesn't have to, and in fact, even better than I'm trying to do or have done, like I think we can evolve to become principled, respectful in our disagreement. And we can just let it be known, look, I don't agree with this person. It doesn't mean I'm advocating we go to war or that other people hurt this person or whatever. It's just saying, look, man, she said this, and this is why this is wrong. And the idea that we wouldn't do that, I just can't. To be honest with you, when you say what you said, this is sort of always my problem with popularity, because to me, the idea that the more popular you get, the quieter you would have to be on certain topics. That's the contradiction that I struggle with all the time and want. I'm sorry. I'm just saying, and that's why it's important that the kinds of criticism that Carlos was offering, and that and to his credit, Bill was willing to join us for, is important, because if y'all just going to go out here and become super famous and quiet.
So I think the contradiction, the irony is that it's the same. We're talking about the same contradiction, but from two different perspectives. And like, until you've been on this side of it, it's hard to understand.
You're right.
Oh,
and I'm
not that.
The ton is heavy, doctor.
I promise you that's not.
All right.
It's not.
So
it's not
fair
that.
enough. So thank God for the little people then.
No. I mean, like, legitimately, yes, but no. Like, let me just explain what happens. And this is something that I explained. It's funny. I just gave the same speech at the Black Men Build retreat, which is the neo-colonial project master's tool du jour right now that we're all looking at, right? This is Google. This is trillions of dollars of data and research that goes into hacking people's brains and manipulating their behavior. And what you all are talking about, first off, are things we do. I want to just make sure that's understood. What you just described, Dr. Ball, is what myself, Bill, and others do consistently when it's time to discuss a Candace Owens, a Jasmine Crockett, an insert person here. The thing that I'm trying to get people to understand is that regardless of how it's done and the gentleness, the merit, the narrow focus of that aspect, the algorithm and these tools of the masters will still move in specific ways to emphasize the worst possible outcomes to a critique.
Correct.
So perfect example is when Bad and Panada first responded to Lil Bill, Lil Bill was about to respond, and I said, listen, I understand your desire to respond, but understand this: if you respond to Bad and Panada, y'all are forever tied at the hip from that response on this.
But I like that.
That's like that.
Let's go. Let's go. We wedded in hate. We walked down the aisle together. Let's go. God damn it. I hear wedding bells on a daily basis out this piece.
I do.
But you understand, though, that breeds dysfunction. That you know what I'm saying? That's a toxic marriage. The children don't thrive under that.
But one other contradiction to this fame piece that I do want to bring up and put us a little bit on the spot for, and a little bit of a shout out, is that, and I get it, I'm often critical of certain levels of popularity and the performance that it requires. But at the same time, as it's just happened this morning, when organizers on behalf of political prisoners like Mumia want to get word out, and they want to be able to reach people with platforms the size that you have, and your willingness to do it, as you've already agreed, and I'm calling you out on publicly, is again part of that conundrum. Like, if you don't grow your platform to the size that it is and do the things that you have to do to get there, then they don't have the outlet that they need, or that they feel that they need, for this next push that's about to start next week. So it's like, so that's why I try to, let me just say a couple more things, because I want to get to the point because I know I wanted to say one more thing real quick about this. So, all right, so that contradiction is real. And this is why Carlos, and I'll just skip to the one bit of criticism I had for you, is that, and I admit that this has become a tactic for me more in my old age, is that part of what your criticism of Bill, I felt did go over the line in the moment of, you called for his excommunication essentially from the left, is basically as I took what you were saying. And it was like, you've gone too far. That's why you got to get out of here. And we got, and I'm only saying that to say, like, because of the point I just made, if up to a certain point, and I know there's a line, and I don't know, it's grade sometimes, but up to a certain point, if people can be reasoned with, as is attempted here today, and maybe course correct, given a chance to course correct, depending on the transgression, their popularity and even their relative liberal political position to some of us can become valuable and helpful. If you just, scorch earth, saying, even as you did, that you don't really watch his content, and you see this one video and he steps a line that you don't like, and it's like, that's it. Then, and it's not that I'm disagreeing with your criticism, is that I'm just and I'm actually just wondering, I'm not entirely sure if I'm right on this, but this is just how I feel in the moment. That by the way, I see that we have exactly 666 people watching right now.
When y'all gotta leave?
That's right.
No. So this is the point, because one of my other criticisms that I wanted to get to from Bill's video was that he does skew, and this is a disagreement we have from his other videos. He's way too much of a believer for me in the religious stuff. So and I was with you on that criticism of him, even giving some room that Exodus was real and Jews were enslaved in Egypt. None of that is real. And even Jewish, that's the other thing. Jewish biblical scholars are the first to admit this. That's the other thing. Like, it's a whole other, but whatever. But the 666 thing, by the way, if you really, apparently, if you read Greek and Latin, they're meant to reference Nero. They're not references to the devil at all. The 666, if you do the lettering and the numbering or whatever, it's a reference to Nero, and the writers of that text were calling him out as the one causing all the problems. So it wasn't a reference to. So that's just, anyway, that's just an aside. But so yeah, that was my thing. Like, I just thought like that, and my note was that you were too quick to excommunicate. That was my only, so. But that's, but go ahead and respond. Yeah.
Okay, so I listened to the conversation you had with Cam, and I thought it was a great conversation, right? Cam was kind of used a little bit in terms of pushing this essentially Zionist, propaganda, and he took corrective action, right? Had you on, kind of talked it out. I was more gracious with him, and I chose not to cover it because I realized that I was a little too hypercritical, because he did do the correcting, what we want to see people do, right? I was still kind of a little in disbelief, the fact that I think the most prominent event, and I even hate phrasing it that way, in modern history, the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza, that you're going to be so proactively, it feels proactively ignorant on the subject, right? I do feel that if you're going to talk on it, if you're going to engage in that field, that you do have a responsibility to educate yourself on it. Otherwise, and I was feeling what Little Bill was saying, that you don't have to have an opinion on everything. And I was perplexed. So like, then why are you even voicing this when so many of the things that you're saying are incorrect? Like, so I understand, like I said in the beginning, I think I'm doing my best to say, hey, I know where you're coming from and the people that are being opportunistic. A main example, we mentioned Bad Empanada, Norm Finkelstein. Norm Finkelstein is the face of like a Jewish anti-Zionist face, huh?
I said that shit is crazy. I was just agreeing.
Yeah, and Norm Finkelstein has literally said, quote, I am not an enemy of Israel. He was on campuses telling Palestinians and pro-Palestinian protesters to stop chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And instead chant, from the river to the sea, Palestinians will be free. Again, he's not an anti-Zionist. He's not calling for decolonization. In fact, he has mocked decolonization sitting next to Dr. Cornel West. He mocked the idea of de-Zionization. He mocked the idea of decolonization. He is a white savior. The only reason he talks about Palestinians or Palestine to begin with, and he has said this himself in terms of like the hyper focus on the fact that the Zionist entity has stolen, the memory of the Holocaust, and he feels a personal attack because his parents were Holocaust survivors. If you remove that aspect of it, I don't think Norm Finkelstein gives a fuck, right? And he said it himself on Piers Morgan when this erupted right after October 7th. He said, I had given up on Palestinians, and if I gave up on them, that means they had no hope. That is by definition a white savior. And to be that hard of a white savior, to complain to Dr. Ball that he's not allowed on Democracy Now! Anymore because these Palestinians have replaced and displaced them. Mind you, this is a man that when he debated the Creep Destiny, he said, I talk slow because I'm very critical of the words that I use because words have meaning, right? And so when he says I've been replaced and displaced with what he brags about 3 decades of covering the colonization of Palestine, and he says I've been replaced, displaced by them, he has an inherent disdain for Palestinians if he's not able to be their white savior. So there are people like that try to, like Lil Bill was saying, to co-opt the movement, to be the voice of the movement, to speak over Palestinians. And credit to the students, and actually Mahmoud Khalil was at that protest that Norm Finkelstein was spewing this nonsense, right? And so it's wild to see that he was in the background. He was one of the organizers. And as soon as he gave up the mic, Norm Finkelstein, the first chant you hear by Palestinians from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And so there are opportunists. Little Bill, you're correct on that. Absolutely. Whether it's Norm Finkelstein, Bad Empanada, I include Hassan Piker, as he was literally at the DNC when they were committing a Holocaust of Palestinians, refusing to even have Palestinians, in my opinion, Palestinian compradors that were begging for representation, right? That were sitting out literally on their hands and knees in front of the DNC. The very same people carrying out the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. Like, I've been in situations that like have put me in positions where Palestinians that weren't willing to support the Palestinian resistance forces because they were too self-conscious about how the media is going to perceive them, where it got heated. It was about to get physical. And it's right, here I'm talking to them saying, the moment that you're like, how's the media going to represent us? You've already lost. You've conceded to being mentally colonized because they already think you're a terrorist. They already think that you're an agitator. They already think you're a wrecker. They think you're anti-Semitic. All these things they're going to push regardless of what you do. Right? So, I'm rambling a little bit, but I understand what Little Bill was saying about opportunists.
Right? No, you're good. I got what you were saying. Right. Go ahead, Pete. I'm gonna talk after you.
Well, because the thing I think that Dr. Ball was getting at though is not necessarily.
Oh, sorry, I missed my point. Yeah.
sorry.
Okay, sorry. I went off because just real quick, in terms of like excommunicating somebody, right? Or my position really is after so long, just real quick, after so long, after what we've been through, and you choosing, nobody forcing you, right? This isn't a ContraPoints moment. Nobody's asking you for your opinion on this subject, or at least not that I saw. For you to voice, this position after witnessing so much of this, and being not just wrong, but even spreading Zionist propaganda while doing it, my reaction is going to be, you're not with us. Then you're choosing the sides of colonizers, and you're excusing and minimizing what Euro-American Zionists are contributing. Like the shooting that almost happened that just got stopped in Michigan, right? The synagogue in Michigan. We have to understand that these synagogues are settler colonial outposts that are recruiting and funding the Zionist project. So we're not talking about innocent civilians here. We're talking about proactive colonizers that are benefiting from being in this settler colonial project and trying to reinforce and establish and legitimize and expand the Zionist settler colonial project. Sorry. Go ahead, FD. My bad, bro.
So I'm sorry because I'm also texting about spaghetti ingredients for the night. So I guess you started with the Cam James thing, right? And again, this is informed by a perspective of the numbers of it all, and like the algorithm of it all, and the like. I made a joke somewhere recently about how a lot of people watch me. A bunch of people do not know what the fuck I ever say, right? They're not listening. But they love the vibe. They love the motion, and they love the idea that they're being attached to something that feels bigger or important. And because they're not even operating with like a useful analytical frame of even what I'm saying, they just be out here doing shit. And that attracts so much toxicity and negativity to the creator space that as people who if we're in community, we need to not address people in community as creators, both as them being creators and myself as a creator. I've had me and Dr. Ball have had plenty of conversations. When I talked with Renee over the weekend or last week, and please believe everybody knew that there was a problem. I was fucking up, and I get it. We made sure we had that conversation privately, and then publicly I apologize, and none of the details of it became a thing. And I have a lot of respect for Renee for like just letting it be known it's beef, but that's not content. It's kind of my thing. And the thing I think people don't realize is that, and I've said this about let's take the sex pest, right? So people I always see comments about like, and I can talk about 3 different people, by the way, right? 3-4 different white leftist, prominent white leftist creators. When there's no actual intercommunal accountability, they just go on a break, then come back. And maybe they fight with people. Maybe there's takedown videos and this person's bad and this person's bad and this person out of the left, whatever. And what happens is this machine realigns itself to bring in more people that love the blood sport of it all. And I've heard, ironically, I think Hassan describe it as it's almost like roaches at that point. Once you've burned off your initial community and you have a community there that's mostly there because they love the blood sport, there's nothing you can do to get rid of them. And then that becomes the space. That becomes like an infestation. So I say all that to say, I love so much what Dr. Ball did with Cam, because Cam is better for it, and the space is better for it. Versus it could have been good content to take Cam to the shed. And then Cam had to be accountable, right? So there's also that. But I just always want to remind people that we are not regular. Like at this point, we are not regular people having a conversation in private. We are literally producing content for a multi-trillion-dollar machine that has no interest in the validity or value of our politics. So that's the main thing I wanted to get across.
Also, first of all, what has happened since I finally got some good reception, but I did want to hop on this because I know we finna wrap up. Hop on this point that Deculturation had made about. So why? Well, first of all, let me say this: is that I appreciate the fact that we can sit here and we can have a conversation. We can disagree without it devolving into some bullshit. So first of all, the round of applause for everybody. Second of all, I wanted to address the point about, well, why would you even speak up? Why would you even speak on? Because I've even seen this comment before about, oh, Bill hasn't made any Palestine. I don't want to hear anything Bill got to say about Palestine. Well, I said at the top, the reason why I have not is because I personally, again, feel like that with the platform it would behoove someone like me to elevate the voice of somebody who is directly impacted by current events instead of me putting up a video and then, because I don't work for free, and then putting ads on it. So why do I feel like it's necessary? Why did I feel like in that instance it was necessary? Because even before the bad empanada shit, that was all I was going to say on it. You know what I mean? But my point in making that was it was my way of circling the wagon back to what we really talking about. Because I think a lot of times we do, to use an analogy, you know, Dr. Ball and FD and I talked about this insofar as the biracialism black discussion, right? As people say, oh, well, we need to have, you know, language to describe, you know, the difference and experience that first of all biracial black people don't pass as white. You know, I got a fair-skinned daughter who has two black parents, but people say we need to have language to describe the experience of somebody who gets preferential treatment because of the way they present in white society. We have language for that. That's colorism. That's texturism. That's featureism. There's no point, in my opinion, of delineating even further for the sake of muddying the waters. And that's what I feel like the whole Jewish supremacy talking point, that's the only real material function that it serves, because we have Zionism. If you want to say that there are levels to how deeply involved into Zionism one is, then all right, we could have that conversation. But it concerns me and it worries me, you know, when folk on this side either can't recognize or willfully choose not to recognize the implication of using such language just because they want to make a point. You understand what I'm saying? So that's why I felt like it was necessary to make that video to remind folk, at least on that watch me, that at the end of the day, you understand what I'm saying? The target is at white supremacist neocolonialism. That's what it is. Because I promise you, if it were, and I don't even know if y'all got a chance to cover this, but I promise you, if it were black Jews, if it were Ethiopian Jews that were at the front, where would this conversation be going?
No, Deculturation called them colonizers too. I
missed a lot. I missed a lot then. But
go ahead, Carlos. My bad. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go.
No, okay. So because you did this throughout, and I was even reading the post that you initially like set off on this. I don't know. I don't understand why you continue to compare European Jews to black people. Because you even talked about hoteps, right? And you're like, oh, you know, hoteps this, and I realize that if you're a white leftist and you're hyper focused on black supremacists, right? I mean, I laugh at the pedo Vosh, right? That was like hyper focused on Black Hitler. Hassan and the guy from fucking, is it TrueAnon? We're joking about the same thing, about a Black Hitler, right? And it's like
I don't know these people. I know Vosh,
right,
but I
right.
don't.
Yeah. So what I was struggling with is like hoteps like have no history of colonization that I know of. They're not like a group, and like you mentioned, you're correct. They are a minority within the black community. Zionists are the vast majority, if not almost the entirety, of the Euro-American population. Name me one. I've asked this of so many people. Name me one major Jewish institution that is anti-Zionist, not liberal Zionists like JVP, who just started aligning with the Democratic Party after they carried out a genocide of Palestinians. That is anti-Zionist. I
say that I feel like I said in the video that by definition, the vast majority of Jews are Zionists by definition. I did say that.
So that's what I'm asking.
The delineation that I wanted to make was, if you're talking about specifically a subsect of Jewish people who say that it's not enough to have a Jewish ethno-state in Palestine, but that all Palestinian people must either be exterminated or subjugated in order to maintain that state. I don't believe that is that the majority?
Bro,
Because
that's a
by
prerequisite to
definition-
settler colonialism. That's a prerequisite of settler colonialism. You cannot have a settler colonial project without
in
ethnically
practice
cleansing,
it is.
exterminating, and removing the indigenous population.
I agree. In practice, it is. But if you did a survey and asked, if you did a poll and asked Jews, which again we've already agreed that the majority of Jews, by definition, are Zionists. Would the majority of them? Because when I hear supremacy, when I hear white supremacy to me means that white supremacy, and I say this all the time, will not be satisfied. And I don't want to take up too much time, 'cause I know we already almost at 5 o'clock. Means it will not be satisfied until all non-white people are either exterminated or subjugated. It will not stop. So again, there's a difference between the people who espouse that rhetoric. You understand what I'm saying? And insofar as Jewishness, there's a difference between people who espouse that rhetoric and the people who say, "Oh, I didn't realize that Israel was doing that. That this is really how fucked up it is." I would dare to argue that if you ask the majority of American Jews prior to October 7th, they didn't really understand the bullshit that Israel got up to. I may be wrong. But I would dare to venture that they did not know, because I have had these conversations with folks since then that have said that I did not realize that it was like that. Again,
But
that's
I think
completely
an important
anecdotal.
caveat, but an important piece missing from that is that I don't think they care. They don't know because they don't. If they don't know, it's because they don't care. It's not because they really believed everything was wonderful over there and everybody was. That's at least my impression.
Well, here's the thing: even when they do find out, they're still unwilling to be anti-Zionist. I already mentioned Norm Finkelstein. Bad Empanada made a video praising him, which again highlights that he's just a fraud. If you actually were anti-Zionist, you would realize that Norm Finkelstein is probably the most hypercritical liberal Zionist, but still a Zionist nonetheless. Sam Cedar has literally said, "I don't think Israel should disappear." Right? His co-host Emma Vigeland has said, "Israel has the right to exist because it does exist." That circular colonizer mentality, right? That makes no sense at all. They're calling for like the assimilation of Palestinians, the indigenous population, into the Zionist project. That is their solution because that's what they saw here, and it's worked out great for them, right? So, again, I asked earlier, but he kind of fell off. My question was, if we agree that every Zionist isn't necessarily a Jewish supremacist, right? Because you have like your Joe Biden, who's a Catholic, even though he claims to be Zionist. Is it that every Euro-American Jewish person who is Zionist is inherently a Jewish supremacist?
And I think that I understand the point that you're getting at, and I do agree with it. I think that my hang-up comes in the usage, specifically the usage of the phrase Jewish supremacy, because of the connotation that it carries with it. That is
what
my
more do you need
hang-up
them to do in Palestine?
Say it again.
What more do you need them to do in Palestine?
Oh no. Well, again, what I'm saying is that, and this is the point that I keep coming back, and I'm sorry, I gotta hop off after this, is that we have language to describe this, in my opinion. It's Zionism. This is what Zionism is. I don't believe that we need to delineate any further. I don't believe that we need to distinguish any further, because regardless of if you believe that all Palestinians need to be exterminated or subjugated for the maintenance of a Jewish ethno state, if you are actively funding that, then you are complicit in it. You are a Zionist by definition. So we already have that establishment. And because we have that establishment, I don't believe that it's necessary to delineate any further and say, okay, well, we got these Zionists over here, and then these super duper Zionists over here that we're gonna call Jewish supremacists. They're all Zionists.
Wait.
You know what I mean?
But do you understand why it's important to make the distinction between a Zionist and a liberal Zionist? Because I've been criticized for making the distinction, right? And I'm like, the reason why it's important is to highlight their method and strategy and how they spread propaganda. When I call Sam Cedar a liberal Zionist, it's because he's being praised as somehow pro-Palestinian because he's advocating for the civil rights of Palestinians and the end of apartheid, but he's not calling for decolonization because apartheid is just a tool of settler colonialism, right? So we have to make these distinctions in order to call it out. Do I think it's necessary to call a Jewish person that is a Zionist a Jewish supremacist? No, because it's inherent within it. But when you're talking broadly, there is a difference between, you know, what Joe Biden thinks and what a Zionist Euro-American Jew thinks.
Well, I'll say this, and then I'm sorry, but I really do gotta hop off because my son about to get out the office. I'll make this point, and y'all can feel free to disagree. You know, talking in a broader context, there is a difference between the kind of white supremacy practiced by Donald Trump and Joe Biden. They're both white supremacists, if you ask me. Period. Point blank. I personally don't feel like there's a need because in practice they're doing the same thing. Just because you say it nicely and you use a hard R, it doesn't make a difference to me. The material impact of your ideology still has the same outcome to me. So therefore, I don't feel the need to delineate between the smiley face fascist and the one who's going to stick a knife in my back. You understand what I'm saying?
Sorry, but Bobby Torre had to distinguish the pitfalls of liberalism because it's such an issue, because it's insidious. So there is a reason why.
I mean, there's a reason.
If we're talking about liberal Zionism and Zionism, yes. I don't know. And maybe because I'm reading the chat and I'm really annoyed.
But the point that I think is getting missed is that, as I'm hearing it, is that when Bill is calling out, the way I've heard it is, as I tried to explain at the beginning, when Bill is calling out this use of Jewish supremacy as a phrase, I hear him calling out, and I agree, people who are just using this issue to get off their talking points against Jews. And that's why I also think what you're saying, Carlos, about delineating between liberal Zionism and Zionism is very important. And I think, in other words, I'm hearing you both. I don't want to be, overdo it here, but I'm hearing an agreement more than anything else on this.
It's an agreement as long as you don't defend Euro-American Jews that are Zionists. Like, you could call out the Tucker Carlson, you could call out, the anarchist experience, the Bad Empanadas. That does not require you to defend or make innocent Euro-American Jews. I mean, there's literally numbers. He said that Euro-American Jews in his age demographic don't really care about the Zionist entity. That is incorrect.
Right. He was wrong about that. I agree with you on that. Yeah. But right. Yeah, he's wrong about that. But because I've seen it myself. And so the only other thing that I think that I wanted to ask you about from your video, and then we can wrap whenever you all want, is Carlos.
I'm waiting for materials to get here, so I got a little more time.
Okay, right, for the ingredients to show up. Is that what this is? Yeah.
Dinner's on me.
Yeah, and I haven't gotten my dinner bell text yet, so I guess I have a few more minutes too. Because it's 5 p.m. East Coast time. That's old people's dinner time. So I'm waiting. I'm over here starving and waiting to go to bed. I don't even know why I'm still up. But when you were doing your point about Jews being white in your video, and you were putting up the pictures of Prager and Portnoy and whoever the hell else. The only thing I wasn't clear on in terms of what you were saying is because as I've always understood it, the history is that it is that in the context of Europe, European Jews have not been considered white and have been targeted. So not to the extent that I would agree with Bill's reference to the Sopranos joint where the Jew was telling them we were the ends of Europe first while you all were in Africa painting your faces and all that kind. I'm not agreeing with that per se. Except to say, wait a minute. Maybe I am in the sense that I think Bill was right that from the perspective of Jews, they do feel that way. It's not that it's correct, but from the perspective of Ashkenazi European Jews and their relationship to Europe, they do feel that way. And I do think that scene in The Sopranos was an accurate depiction of how most European Jews feel vis-a-vis their history in Europe. Not that it's accurate to make that comparison, but I do think they feel that way. And that I do think there is a foundation of accuracy in that only to the extent that, again, within the context of Europe, Jews were not welcomed as white. But that was it. So I just wanted to give you a chance to, if I got any of that wrong, or if you were saying something I missed, yeah.
Can I add real quick to incorporate into your response? And that kind of goes back to the earlier conversation, right? That there's still an internal conflict of some Jews with the greater white European project here, where there are people on the hunt to oust them, right? Whether their response is to be like the Irish, to say like, look, no, we're just with y'all, whatever. They can't though, like, because they're Jewish, they can't be like the Irish in the face of the Fuentes's of the world. So I kind of like, that's why I kind of struggle with the framing of some of the framing that I've heard. It's like, yeah, I agree that Jews are not people of color. They are white Europeans at their core, in this country at least, for the most part. But that doesn't mean there's not a coterie of people after them. So
no,
like,
I'm not.
What do we call that?
The history to me is very clear, and I think, if we, to the extent possible, perform an objective analysis, I think we could even conclude that collectively there is a trauma that Jews are dealing with in terms of their history in Europe. And I would even be able to go so far as to say that collective trauma has led them to make maybe logical from the sense of their perspective in history, but unfortunate choices that pit them against the world majority. And this is why when I was doing this series on analysis of Jews, I am moved by the historian Israel Shahak on this point, where he talks about historically European Jews playing this intermediary role between the leaders of most nations and those that are at the true bottom. And he has acknowledged historically this creates problems for Jews because they're not welcomed at the elite, but they don't want to be part of the bottom, and they're happy to play that intermediary role for their own sense of safety and nationalistic sovereignty, and again, as a result, end up being pitted against.
So, and I'm sorry, Carlos. So I think I'm gonna try to set this out, what you're saying, so I can feel like I can put it in my understanding. So what you're saying is basically the Jewish Americans that would call themselves a marginalized people are really responding to, they're not responding to like genuine marginalization as Black people, immigrants, et cetera, might see, but more so to that mediated status that they can't escape from, but they also created.
They're responding to what they dealt with in Europe. The problem is they're okay.
No.
The problem is that traumatic response leads them to team up with the very people that are creating that problem for everybody else in their nominal place of safety. So that's why, more broadly speaking, John Oliver Killens, the great Black writer that many have forgotten, unfortunately, his point, I think, still stands, that the problem fundamentally between Black and white is that white people see, in terms of the United States, is that they see the United States as salvation and Black people as enslavement historically. And that fundamental difference is always going to be a problem. And that I think applies to Jews as well. To Jews, European Jews, the United States is largely a place of salvation. And as a result, they are not willing to side against it. And that's why when you look at, that's why the founders of Hollywood, the writers of so many of these Christmas songs, these were Jews wanting to escape the violence of Europe by becoming assimilated white Americans. And as such, they have to play the role of white Americans, which is defend Israel and hate Black people. So anyway, but at the same time, that's why I'm saying I bristle at this idea that they should, because of that history in Europe, be put in the same category as Black and brown and indigenous people here in the United States. That doesn't work for me. That doesn't work for me. So yeah, go ahead, Carlos. Go ahead.
I mean, I've jokingly said that I don't care about white on white violence. Like, I don't care about their inner beef. The only reason that we're forced to is because they expanded that and use it as a linchpin for their settler colonial project. But when you look at the, original founders of the Zionist project, they hated the survivors or the victims of the Holocaust and the survivors, right? They embraced labor Zionism because they wanted to achieve the Jewish Übermensch, right? They despise those people that were unwilling to take up arms the right way, right? Because some did resist. So, I mean, okay, this idea that, or to give credence to, that European Jews were not European because they weren't treated as such, I can't give that the benefit, because like, what does that mean in terms of like Nazi ideology? That they were correct? That they weren't actually Europeans? Or if they're not Europeans, then where are they from? Because they're not Semitic people, right? Like again, like, what are we doing here in the sense of like,
well, I think it's because the practical regardless of like the truth of the matter, the practical outcome was that they were ousted from European identity and status in Europe. So I'm not saying that's semantics. I don't know. Maybe are we saying the same thing again?
Well, no, what I'm saying is, why are we forced to give that some type of like legitimacy, right? Like we understand that race is a construct. Right? No, I'm saying we understand that race is a construct and there's material consequences for how you're categorized and what you're excluded and included in, right? But we need to separate that from the fact that like that gave them some type of generational trauma to then enact the settler colonial project, because those individuals that carried out the settler colonial project despised the people that were victims of being excluded.
But that's but again, as I understand it, that's the point, that as is the case in almost every group, this shady elite take advantage of their people's suffering to get a project that benefits them. And that's why the mythology that I was raised with always had at its core that the Zionist movement, that the word I was raised with, tricked my mother's people to go there in the first place, and then threw them out because they didn't want to support the project. That they were encouraged out of what would eventually become the Zionist entity. So, and in fact, I just got an alert on my ancestry.com that shows my grandmother's birth record as saying born 1898 Palestine. It says so I just thought that was, I
said you got to rep the set now.
Well, I mean, I just thought I thought it was pretty cool to see that it was, at least to the extent that this means anything, acknowledged that this is where she was born. This is what they were calling this place in 1898, and that her parents had again felt that they had been tricked by this movement that was claiming, we're doing this for you, it's for us, it's for this, it's for that. And then when they saw what was happening to Palestinians, when they saw that this was not some socialist project, and that this was and it also involved more religion that they anticipated, they were like, we're out, or were pushed out, whatever. I don't know. But that, so, and again, the only reason that I'm saying, when I hear you ask the question, Carlos, why are we forced to deal with this? My only point would be only because of the ravages of world history, but also because only to the extent that we would want some relatively objective analysis to the extent possible. If we want an actual analysis, I do think we have to understand that this is the history that produced what we're dealing with. Even, not to say we have to accept or justify or step back in our resistance to it, but in terms of understanding why what is happening, that's why I think we should.
And if I could also amplify that, Carlos, I want to leave you room to respond. But to me, it's also because the people who benefit the most from that framing are literal neo-Nazis and Nazis. Like I made a comment about Fuentes earlier. Somebody in the chat said, don't overplay Fuentes' significance in like our current political reality. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like Fuentes is huge. Tucker Carlson's running for president. He might win. and that is Christian nationalism in the White House. You know what I'm saying? And like
he'll have the FBA crowd voting for him.
He'll have the FBA, right? Like like the amount of complex machinations of the right, and that they have pulled in the Christian nationalists, the outright neo-Nazis like Fuentes, the FBA, and the people who are ADOS that claim they're not FBA, but they run in the same playbook. They've all coalesced behind this. They've all coalesced behind framings of certain things that are fundamentally wrong in certain levels, right? Like, I'm not disagreeing with the way you're framing it, but I'm saying that accurate framing to me in the moment is less important than efficient response to what that framing is attached to. And that may be my naivete, but that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I don't think we can afford to sacrifice like the truth or accuracy to concern ourselves. And this is something that actually I was thinking about with Little Bill, is co-optation by reactionaries is always going to happen. It's unavoidable. I mean, that's how fascism came to be with Mussolini. Like, it's going to happen, right? And so I was going to add, like, if you're going to criticize somebody like Candace Owens and you're concerned about how white supremacists might use that against her or fuel that, not that it needs it, but that it could, the same way with the way that I talk about Little Bill, before actually carrying out my criticism of his work, I said, fuck Bad Empanada, he's anti-black, not even 2 minutes in, and he was already up with this bullshit. Like, if you're here because any association with him, know that, like, if you want to call it disavow, sure, I don't fuck with him and what he stands for, right? So there is no avoiding reactionaries biting or co-opting, any movement. We've seen it time and time again. So I mean, what level of concern do we have to play?
At least within the context of content and like talking heads and edutainment, whatever. I just fundamentally disagree with that. There's so much co-opting that happens.
No, I'm saying they're gonna do it, but I'm saying it's
so they're gonna do it, but there's ways you can make it so much easier, is what I'm saying. There's ways you could serve it up on a platter. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Just to hyper focus back on this. What I'm saying is we shouldn't concern ourselves with saying or making the distinction between Europeans and European Jews, because in doing so, you're serving what I think is Zionist propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're right.
I agree with that aspect. Yeah. Like I don't like, people have to remind me to say. I made that joke earlier. I'll be talking about white people like me, Jews. I guess I really mean white people though, because like, this is white people. The shit I'm bothered by is the white people shit. I ain't never been bothered by the Judaism part, right? In my personal experience, and then now it's I've been able to develop. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm okay, but I don't know. I think I might have just lost my thought there. I just don't want to. I do think it's important to note, however we want to use it and do with it what we will. The reality still is that within white societies, Jews are not considered white. When those doors close, and the Jews know this, and Jews know this. Jews know this,
and Jews and the Irish.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm not.
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if Italians and Irish know they're not white, like Jews know they're not white.
I do believe that they know that they are not. I think the key difference actually is Christianity for me, because
we need to bring back anti-Catholicism.
All of it.
That'll help get people in order.
No, I mean, but seriously, that if anything has helped the Irish and the Italians helped in this regard, it is that. And Jews at the end of the day are still blamed for killing Jesus. And that has way more to do with this than I think people want to acknowledge. And they don't say it publicly, but I absolutely believe this to be true. And then because they don't study these histories very closely, they don't care to understand why Jews would never have believed Jesus was the Messiah, and why they would have killed him as a traitor or wanted him to be killed as a traitor, because that's the law. If you portray yourself as the false Messiah, that's punishable by death. And he, according to Jewish scripture, was not the Messiah, didn't do one thing they said the Messiah was going to do, not one thing. But Yeah. But at the end of the day, and this is, I've made fun of this with the story about my own mother and father, that once you're here in this context, once you've stepped over that quote unquote European boundary, it's white. You're white. Okay. And if you want to distinguish yourself as not white, you're going to have to behave in institutionally and collectively in many, many different ways. So yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Because you just reminded me of something. The whole Tucker Carlson kind of and Nick Fuentes pushing back against Zionism, Judaism, right? I do think it's trying to hold the floodgates of Jews being accepted as white completely. And the Zionist Project is trying to buy into it. And so you see the struggle between these two European people of trying to gain acceptance into the broader whiteness, the same way that the Italians Catholic, the same way that the Irish Catholic did. And that religious battle is still carrying through, but they're trying to break away from it. And that's why you're seeing the embrace with Ben Shapiro, who's a straight up Zionist, of Judeo-Christian values to distinguish themselves as different from the Muslim world. Right. And so like, that's our common enemy. Let us all be white, regardless of our religion. You did it with the Catholics. You did it with the Irish. You did it with the Italians. Why not with us when we share this common root? And you see this constant talk of Judeo-Christian values. You hear from Jordan Peterson, right? This has actually been a conspiracy theory that I've been playing with in my head for a while. That this is to buy into whiteness. Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What was that? I missed that.
I went real left. My bad. Say what you was gonna say.
Wait, what did he say? I missed it.
I said that Ben Shapiro killed Jordan Peterson. Oh, because he's been on his deathbed for like the last 18 months. That's why we ain't heard from him. My bad. I did real shit.
That's funny. So no, that's funny.
Now I want to be clear. I don't believe that the Mossad took out Charlie Kirk. I don't. Anyways, but I do think that there is this internal battle within the broader whiteness of saying, are we going to allow Jewish people in? And you see the holdouts like Tucker Carlson, right? Like Nick Fuentes, who, I mean, they go back and forth, but a lot of it is a game. A lot of it is just kayfabe. But I do think that they're fighting. There's a segment of white people fighting to maintain whiteness away from European Jews. And so I think a lot of that is happening in the background.
So, but that's why I thought I agreed with what I've understood Bill's point to at least in part have been, that the phrase Jewish supremacy is being used by that crowd you're talking about, who are saying we're not letting these non-white fake whites in, and they killed our savior. Right. And we only want them so that we can take over that region of the world. And
but there are Jewish supremacists. My whole issue is like that is a thing. And the reverse part of the reverse part of what you're saying is the Jewish supremacist is laughing at the Christians, thinking, "Oh, you think you're going to use us? Just wait until we get Greater Israel. We already have the nuclear weapons. You can't abandon us. We'll use what do they call it? The Goliath? Not Goliath. The Samson protocol." The Samson protocol, where they're just going to nuke everything if they don't have their way. So what I'm getting at is those are Jewish supremacists, and this whole kind of usage of the word goyim, it is gross. It is inherently anti-Semitic, right? But there are Jewish supremacists that do mean it, like do use it.
Goyim is what Jews call the non-Jews.
Yeah.
So, well, you said it's anti-Semitic. I missed that.
The usage, like you see Nick Fuentes and other people.
When they use goyim.
Who uses it all the time? Nick Cruz from formerly from Black Liberation Media uses it all the time. He's like, "Oh, this goyim slop," and I'm like, how much do you cater to white nationalists like Jake Shields, where you're selling Rhodesia t-shirts together? Like, how?
Wait, you said he's on Black Liberation Media? Did you? What did you say? Sorry.
Did I say? What is it? Blackout Network.
Revolutionary Blackout Network or whatever it was. Yeah.
Fred Hampton's left it.
So he says goyim and all that.
He uses goyim. Yeah.
Oh, the dirt bag. And that's not. Can I just? Because I'm gonna go in a second.
Yeah, we should all go in a second. But that's why. Look, while you're here, real quick, I just want to say this publicly. This is why I'm a big fan of what Deculturation does. I don't watch none of these people. I don't know who any of these people are. Seriously, Bad Empanada, none of these people. I've learned so much, and I just learning about more about them through the criticism is the only way I could deal with it, and I appreciate it. Shit is hilarious. Shit is hilarious. Go ahead, FD. My bad.
And so, but I want to push back on that. And Carlos, I think you have so much more to offer than policing the community. To be blunt, because it, especially as your voice gets more respected and grows, the thing that is happening right now, as we say all these names, right? If this manages to break containment, you can expect 55 response videos, right? And it might sound like fun right now, Dr. Ball, the marriage of hate, but as a person who's been in that crucible, in the eye of that hurricane, it's not, and people, I've seen people in the chat be like, it's about money and numbers. No, it's the frustration of having your voice distorted, of having what you mean and what you're trying to say distorted, and you literally cannot fix it. You literally cannot stop being what someone made up in your head. Someone just said, I'm a Tommy Curry supporter in the chat. And like Dr. Ball, of all people, like y'all know I am his first hater.
So, but one of the problems, but one of the problems that we all have to deal with on some level, we got to stay out the chat sometimes. We got to stay out the comment section sometimes.
But this is the chat.
No, I understand. No, I understand. So, but just before you respond, Carlos, let me just say this, just to offer up another. I'm going to disagree with FD here, and say that I think what you're doing is vitally important, and that as your voice grows, you can demonstrate a political standard and an approach and a level of holding a sort of leftward line that I think is important to hold people accountable to. The only thing I would say, as I said earlier, I do think when it comes to certain people who haven't, I think, gone overboard yet, we don't have to push them over. We can be critical and invite them to stick around a little bit, and then once they prove themselves, then you can flame on. But yeah,
that's better than what I said. I will engage that as the message I'm trying to get across, is that these mediums move in ways that like people don't fully appreciate. I've been in rooms with these Mr. Beast types. I've been in rooms with chats with Mr. Beast. And I'm not saying that on some clout shit. I'm saying on some spook who sat by the door shit. And it frustrates me that people don't understand they don't respect the amount of somebody you mentioned 100 times about the military designing media, Dr. Ball, that this is still that. And so you may think you're moving in a way that is natural and like reasonable and maybe even not moral, but like principled in your critiques, but there are ways to make it less amenable to co-option and utilage by our enemies that I don't see enough. I'll say I don't see enough of from a lot of people. And I know this from experience. I know this from being in rooms with these folks. I don't want to call them certain things. And I know this from what I've had to do to maintain my own sanity. And I just really wish people would like engage with that critically and not say FD just big broing people and talking about numbers and money and wealthy famous YouTuber. Like if that was the case, I wouldn't want to spread that message to you. It's not to protect me or to say you shouldn't critique me or my friends. I love good criticism. I love that shit because I want to be as good as motherfuckers are at this shit in terms of the actual politics and the theory and like the what I come to here for, right? So I love that part, but I don't like that. I don't like that other aspect that I've already explained, and I'll leave it there.
No, look, I appreciate it. Slightly uncomfortable with any type of compliments or, but what I will say is somebody's got to do it. I literally started my channel because Marianne Williamson was on her book tour / presidential run. She's a Zionist, bro. The Vanguard had her on. She lied about the origins of the Zionist project. They didn't push back on it. And then when I called them out on their chat, not only did they block me, but they also said, like, countless excuses about kibbutz and all these things, right? And they wrapped it up by saying, Gavin said that, I think it's fair to say that some of the founders of Israel had good intentions. And Zach said, yeah, I think that's fair. And I'm like, wow, like this is white supremacy. We just, again, don't recognize it as such, but it is. It's at the very least settler colonial mentality. And so when I look at individuals like Hassan Piker, who I think, I mean, we're seeing all these attacks by the Democratic Party on him. I think that's all kayfabe. I think that's all meant to make him like a villain to centrists and liberals, and to make him more of a martyr, of a hero to those the left of the Democratic Party, so that anyone to the left of Hassan is viewed as a joke, as an extremist, and anyone left of Hassan criticizing him is viewed as helping and aiding the centrists or the reactionaries, which are one and the same. So I feel like I'm losing my mind, bro. I'm not even lying to you, because I'm seeing this. I'm like what's going on, bro? Why would somebody who was invited to the DNC, who brags about, consistently being in conversation with Democratic Party consultants, why is he being somehow like praised as a leftist? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, we can't criticize him about owning a multi-million-dollar home. Bro, how far are you from Skid Row? Why are you not doing a daily stream there, or at least a weekly stream there, when you have multi-millions? It's not about, socialism isn't a poverty cult. It's about pray with your feet. Show the example to your tens of thousands of audience members that if you're going to claim to be on the left, a socialist, a communist, an anarchist, you do shit, because I'm seeing people, working class people, between shifts, exhausted after work, showing up and feeding homeless people. I've seen that. Those are the people that I admire and that I look up to. And for whatever reason, I'm the only one that's angry enough or tapped into these people to call that shit out. So I kind of have to do it. At least I feel that responsibility. I'm working on a video against, calling out Cesar Chavez and the history of his cult that led to why his pedophilia and sexual assault of young brown women was protected and excused. I do feel that it's more valuable. 100%. I feel that's a personal responsibility of mine, being Chicano, being Latino, whatever, Mexican American, whatever you want to call it, a pocho. But at the same time, like that's something.
I want to, if I can
personal.
amen you what you're saying, and I want to be clear. I don't want people to not be critiqued. I don't want to not be critiqued. I don't want people to not be critiqued. I don't want my friends to not be critiqued, and I don't want that criticism to die. I just want to make sure you're aware, and people in the chat who are like calling for call outs, to understand that a call out that isn't happening via phone call privately is content. Period. I don't care how principled, how effective, how analytically clear and like convincing. It is content once you click upload, and especially if ads run in between. And I think people don't appreciate, especially the greater audience, don't appreciate the content of it all enough to know what is happening to them, even as they're consuming it. And so I'm just making sure that point is understood, because that's how we got Bad Empanada right now. Low key, Bad Empanada was not a person whose name I would have to say publicly, because I've had emails with him on any situation, but because of his propensity to call out and people to perceive that as useful to the left and not have the critical faculties to disentangle slop call out content from actual critique, it's now a wart, it's now a disease within the space, that I have to take
people for. No, sorry, I hear you, but the same people complaining about it were using him. Hassan used Bad Empanada as an attack dog against Ethan Klein, when in reality it's like, bro, like, why would you go into bed in business with Ethan Klein, a known Zionist, and his IOF veteran wife? You get what I'm saying? So a lot of Bad Empanada's popularity is, even though he's unprincipled, is because there's no actual principle critique of these individuals. There's a silencing, right? There's a reason why. Look, and I give you a lot of credit. You and Little Bill, you're here. I know Dr. Ball kind of mentioned like, look, I think FD is sincere, but I don't know if he's just like, 4D chess and trying to like being in this space is like, I don't think that's the case because if that were the case, I think there's more benefit. You having a conversation with Bad Empanada is going to do way more numbers than anything, right? Or things like that. You kind of getting into beefs like that. But if you're doing that, dude, you're like Lex Luthor. But anyways, I don't think that's the case. What I will say is, especially in regards to somebody like Hassan Piker, dude, you minimize what an absolute counterinsurgent propagandist he is, right? I view this, the way that you view Tucker Carlson is the way that I view Hassan Piker. How are you telling people to vote for the Democratic Party while they're committing a genocide? Do you think I'm going to get on the phone with him? Like,
well, the problem that I have with that argument that I've been hearing for years is it suggests that you can just get on the phone with these folks and that they will get on the phone with you.
Bro,
and that
we're both in LA County. We're never going to run into each other. He doesn't go out, and when he does, he's in bougie ass spots.
The other mythology is attached to that is that a lot I've seen I've been tricked by this a few times. You get on these calls and then they just nice you. And then you just shut up and then they go back to doing the same shit that they were doing without the criticism. So they don't actually engage the criticism on good faith or make any changes. It's just like, let's talk it out. Come on, Jared. You don't want to go public with that. Just holler at me real quick. Be a man. You're a man.
No,
call me like a man.
And I want to.
And then you call them, and then they did. And you're like, all right, man. All right. And then they go right back.
Yeah, I want to reiterate. I'm not saying don't do the critique. I want to reiterate that. And a lot of what I'm saying actually isn't even for y'all. It's for the greater audience. It's for the audience to understand if that they witness and consume the critique through this medium, it is content, and they have to raise their critical faculties on how they digest that. That's the thing I'm trying to point out.
Yeah,
that's fair.
No, I hear you, and I'm big on whether it's the Discord or on my chat. I'm like, if you make a statement, I need the receipts, because too often things are said or where it's like, no, we need some evidence. Even if it's contested, I need to know where this, claim is coming from. So, and man, I get it. Believe me, I wish I wasn't this way, bro. I wish I was fucking a happy-go-lucky guy. Me and Dr. Ball had joked around about what his godfather says about being invited to the party. You're surprised you're invited at all, or how long you're allowed to be there. Like, I feel that sentiment. Friends that I consider brothers, like have pulled that move on me of being like, look, bro, like, we're trying to have a good time. And I get it, but it's because I cannot keep my mouth shut.
God, if I hear that, Jared, come on, man. Come on, son. Yeah. Why are you bringing that up during the card game, man? I'm just trying to have a drink. Play your round and be quiet. I'm like, but don't you see?
Yeah.
The red on the card is meant to be the blood of the. No, I'm just playing. Nah, go ahead. Yeah, my bad. We got to do it. So look, man. I appreciate everything that you. I appreciate that you all joined me. That we had this conversation. I appreciate the work you're doing and the critique that you all offer as well. And I think, when we disagree, we just have to just say we disagree, and if we can, chop it up and just keep it moving. But yeah, any last comments or anything before we wrap it up? Any, no, we good. Just real quick, there were a couple questions I just wanted to highlight. David Soberg, if you watch Carlos's video, he addresses this. I sort of made a joke about it, but I think you address the non-white Jews. I do encourage Bill and FD and everyone to check out Laith Marouf and Free Palestine TV, as Leah suggests. Just was on with Millennials Are Killing Capitalism and is set to join Saturdays with Renee at some point. Thank you.
Spell that. Can you go back to that real quick?
Oh, I'm sorry. What this one?
Yeah.
Free Palestine TV with Laith Marouf is another good source. I just finished a really good roundtable they had on what's going on in with Iran and Palestine, and it's very good stuff over there. Thank you for the super chat, linking up the faves. and here's Millennials Are Killing Capitalism, talks about Laith Marouf uses Jewish supremacy just for example, so it's not just Tucker. Thanks, Zero PE. Thanks for the convo. Appreciate you. Yeah, the Talmud says a lot of nasty things. That's a fact. And I like this point from Sudeep, to your point about the size of the audience and its demographics. You can have a broader people of color audience and not be niche.
That's not what I said.
Yeah. I know that's not what you said.
Yeah,
That's not what you said. But the way I'm interpreting,
You're talking down to those little folks.
The way I interpret it though is the way I read it is I want to, like, for me, I would want to grow a large audience of the world majority. That would be my way around trying to get the white majority audience type thing. But I hear you. And then Chitty Macha, Zionism is a branch of white supremacy and European hegemony. Thank you for the super chat. Just a day to trail apart. Just sub to Deculturation. I also sub to Jared Ball because I'm familiar with him and his takes on bad faith. I will thank you very much. Please make sure you subscribe to FD, which of course you probably already are. Thanks for the super chat. Big YouTubers in their echo chambers. Martin Hernandez, to my favorite podcasters two of my favorite podcasters all on the same show.
Who are the two though?
I don't know. I was going to say, I hope I'm one of them. Damn. That'd be wild. I'm getting,
look,
but anyway.
I want a lot of podcasters. I don't know. It's probably
yeah. Well, I guess technically none of us. What I will say though is, man, I think it speaks volumes that FD does. Man, we don't go easy on him over here, and credit to him.
Got to take some extra blood pressure medicine when I video.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. No. Genuinely, I appreciate that. I appreciate it when I hear that. I appreciate it when Renee said that. I'm excited for the opportunity Dr. Ball mentioned that's coming, I believe, on Monday.
Yeah.
Because that's why I do that. It's for what Dr. Ball has presented me earlier today is reason why I'm here, because there's no point. I'm starting a football podcast on the low. I'm getting ready to do that shit because I can make way more money doing that and not stress about these parts. But I'm never gonna leave these parts because the whole point in me getting here is to do the type of shit that's happening Monday, and I'm fucking getting goosebumps about the shit. And so it's so when folks be like, I be big bro and people y'all fuck big bro look like. Oh,
that's right. Thank you, Martin, for coming back and cleaning that up. He loves all three of us. So thank you, Martin. Way to clean it up at the end. All right, good people. This has been fun, but I can't stream the way Carlos does. We're not gonna be up here all night. Yeah. So peace, everybody. Big shout out to our guests today. Only if you're willing to fight for it, as Fred Hampton used to say. And we'll catch you next time around here.
And what did you sacrifice? Calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago for which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, have set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy and defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything.
I mix what I like.